Evening all. Here we have Andy P's vintage, made in Japan, 80s Matsumoku Aria Pro 2 laser electric, dun dun dun, classic. So laser electric classic, sorry about the wiggly camera work. Laser electric classic, 4-string bass, with some well-respected pickups. I've forgotten the name of these things, but people seem to like them. Sort of blistering chrome bridge there, big heavy chunk. We've got a 3-way position switch here, volume tone, and then we've got a switch on of a 18-volt powered active circuitry business, which I'll take the back off in a minute and give you a quick glance at. So this isn't what you would call, not technically active pickups, they are passive pickups, but the tone signal goes through this unit. Now look, we have something here. This is, look at this, it's hard to believe, but no, this is looking a bit ragged, but you know, this is 30-40 years later. Let's take those off and we can clean underneath and make them look a whole lot cleaner. Sorry, terrible camera work. I'm doing one thing with one hand. Yeah, it's not normally my thing to take somebody's plastic off their own seats, but when it's something like this that already looks a bit raggedy and I'm going to clean it up, then at least we can make it look a bit nicer. Anyway, so this bass is in, it's one of 2 guitars that Andy Partridge I've picked up from him this time. Again, I did two for Andy earlier on in the summer, and these are another 2. I've got 2 for him and 2 for his friend Stu. Andy's 2 are this bass and an Ozark parlor guitar, and this bass is interesting in that when I first got it, it didn't play at all. So just to give you a sort of an idea of it, hence the amp is here. You might, yeah, it's made a monkey of me now. So first of all, it wasn't working when there, it was like that before. Actually, it wasn't even like that. It's got a bit of signal, but okay. Well, that's interesting. So first inspection, it wasn't making any noise at all. Now, having twiddled this jack socket, which is a Switchcraft, but there's something definitely wrong with it. So twiddling it around, I was able to make it, first of all, make its passive noise. The little amp can't take it, so let's just take it down. A little bit of earthy buzz, but passive tone. Oh, sorry, that's passive. So bridge, neck, and then we have circuit on, which you'll notice is a few degrees of noise. Now we'll check and see what's going on there, but that's good. I put some batteries in tonight to test it out, so we know that the pickups are working, the circuit's working, although it's a bit noisy. So that's a hell of a lot better, but there's definitely something wrong with this jack, despite it being a good quality jack. So for the time being, I will get this amp out of the way. The other thing that then Andy wants from this is, obviously he wants the thing to play, which it wasn't, but he also wanted the action a little bit lower, and I think he's suffering from not enough relief in the neck by the looks of it. There's practically none at all, which for a bass probably isn't very good. So he wanted the action a little bit lower, but actually just having a little play up here, we're on the way out. There wasn't really anything to gain without doing a little bit of fret leveling. And then the question came, well, if I do fret leveling, these frets are pretty low as it is. They're starting out at about 0.9 of a millimeter. But the master wants a little bit lower, so I am going to do the a little bit lower bit. We're going to set that a little bit lower, and I'm going to level these frets using the bass leveler here. He also wanted to look at whether it needed a tusk knot or not, and I think it actually has one, so I'm not really going to worry about doing anything with that just now, unless I notice something not performing along the way, if I notice it's not going into tune properly or whatever. So the first thing I might consider doing is to just give it a tiny bit more relief than it's currently got. I bet this is too small a key. Hard to tell. Yes. So we're going to give it a little bit of bit more relief, but only a tiny little bit. So sorry that it's not a very good view. I'm just going to attempt to make an adjustment there. Very slight adjustment indeed. Smallest amount really. I'm just going to have a quick check visually. Okay, that's already changed it. So we'll hold it there for a minute. Now if I were to lower this action, we're going to pick up a load of buzz up here. I'm going to see if I can level it out. And one of the reasons for that is I know that Andy wants it lower. I'm going to do my best to get it there. But it also, since I'll be doing it, it gives me a chance to freshen up all of these frets anyway. They're low to begin with. They won't feel that much different because I won't be taking that much. But I'll be aiming to try and just get rid of this little bit of fret slap. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do with this. The internal stuff, we'll come back to it a little bit later on, but 9-volt battery, sorry, 2 times 9-volt batteries live in there. I had a bit of sanding on the terminals because they were a little bit corroded, but in here it's one of these little units that sits on the inside of the cover, and it seems to be working, so I don't suspect anything about that itself is wrong, but what we do know is that the jack is not happy, the socket. So if I just give you a quick look, this is the unit. Now you'll probably be getting dazzled, as is always the way with this, so I'll try and get you a close-up look. So there's the I don't quite know what the technical name they ended up giving this. People describe it in various different ways. It's basically takes over from the standard tone function, and it gives you the knob has the pot has a center détente, stops in the middle, or there's a notch in the middle, and on one side it boosts the high pass. Sorry, it's a high pass filter. The other side it's a low pass filter. That's what someone's described it as, and so that's controlled by the signal is either put through as passive from here, or it's sent through to the circuitry over there. But you can see these are just a horrible pile of wires. It's not that complicated in some ways, but it is a pile of wires. Now there's the Switchcraft jack, which is doing the activating the voltage. It looks a bit kind of mangled around there. You can see the those solder joints are a little bit just a bit marginal, but I'll have a sort of look at them and see if I can work out what's going on. It might be worth replacing, but it doesn't look. It looks in physically quite good shape. I did order a load of pots and everything in just in case. But hey, let's have a look at some groovy close-ups. If I can stabilise this darn camera. There we go. No, hang on. Bear with me. I'm so sorry. If we zoom out a little bit. Okay. So we don't often get to look at these things. I've been watching a great channel recently called the Naked Watchmaker, and it's a Brummy guy, and he's an Asian Brummy Asian guy, and he repairs, takes apart and services and fixes these beautiful classic watches, and he's just got a great quality to his voice. He sort of dispenses kind of amusing home philosophy about life, along with good humour and a really nice sort of take on doing his work. And he's all about, you know, fixing the same kind of limited range of things each time. I mean, there's of course variations, but it's essentially the same kind of job. I suppose a bit like guitars, but it's even smaller palette, you know, because he works off a sort of little block that holds the watch, and then he takes out pretty much the same components every single time with his tiny sharp tweezers, and then puts them in this ultrasonic cleaning gunge and does all kinds of sanding things and whatnot. So it's great. It really is great to watch. And Naked, as in Nekkid, Naked Watchmaker. I don't know his name, but you know, he's a great watch. It's very compulsive viewing, and this little boy comes in every now and then and gets his voice comes in on the action. But anyhow, he's got loads of close-up shots like this. So we go over to the circuitry, and you can see, I don't know what's gone on here. So I've got glare everywhere in my face, so I can't really see what I'm looking at. But yeah, look at all that sort of alien goo that's built up. God alone knows what that black stuff is, whether it's affecting the functioning of anything. Look, there's a Texas Instruments there. Look at that. Remember that logo, folks? Texas Instruments processor. I'll bet. Yeah, so that's the little print. Is it a printed circuit board? I suppose you could say that. I took it off to double check it and make sure everything was intact. Anyhow, so there you go. There's the business. We had a sort of plan that if nothing else, if the pickups were dead and or if the electrics were completely fried, then the plan was to return it to a regular bass, get it playing anyway. But Andy will be pleased, no doubt, to hear that this is all potentially going to be working in its original form. But I'll order in another Switchcraft thingy, or I might have one actually in the spares drawer. But I'll go hunting for one of those. But that's the first job. Let's work on the playing action of this. Then second job, let's concentrate on the electronics. Well, for the time being, we'll just put this case back on. And I won't do too much tonight, I don't think, because it will take a little while for them, any parts, if I need to order anything, to arrive anyway. I've got a deadline for a couple of weeks from now. I've got to take the guitars back up to Stu, who will hand them back to Andy. Keep his two and hand the other two back to Andy. So there's a little bit of time, and this is tonight was about figuring out, getting a sense of what was up with this. So back over onto this side. So what I'm going to do, at a bit of a zoomed out view, sorry it's not brilliant, but something like that, I'm going to just make some adjustments to the action and then I'm going to see what difference I can make with the lightest bit of leveling, given that the frets are fairly low to begin with. Now, I wouldn't necessarily say they were worn out. I just think they're kind of low starters. Could have been the style, for all I know. So I think, you know, I mean, the business here is that this is probably lower than any sane person would want to set it. But Andy's been playing it, he knows the bass, and he's asked me to set it a little bit lower. So you know that when a customer wants you to have a go at that, you have a go at it, because even if it seems lower than X, Y and Z bass players might normally have it, then it doesn't matter, because Andy's been playing it and he wants it a tiny bit lower. So we'll do what we can on this. Where's my there you are. I put a thing out the other day in a comment saying I didn't know what the what the name of the hole at the top of the hex. Oh dear, that one's stripped. Didn't know what the hole. So when the top bit of your grub screw, the hole that takes the key is stripped out. What's that thing called? Well, or it's a little bit stripped, but what's it called? And I couldn't work out what the name of it was. And there were some amusing attempts at coming up with a name for it. None of them, I think, were satisfactory, so we still really don't have a name. Right, so we're getting some real buzz out here. I've already done a little bit off camera just to test see how much I needed to do. It was more of a little bit of a trial thing there. Excuse me. Just one of those I didn't want to be on camera while I was just giving it a go. So I've done a little bit already on here, a tiny bit, and that has shown me that there's a little bit of a sort of congestion here, which is not surprised really, considering it's a long base neck and it's been clamped right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm not really even going to mark the frets up here, since I've got the strings on. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to pretty much have a go. I'm going to do the E again, not the E, whatever that one's called, G. And that's annoying me. For years I've put a little cardboard box there with the 400 grit sandpaper, and it's right in front of where I stand, and it just gets in the way all the time. I'm just going to use a bit of cheat there. So I've already calibrated this to this G track, and this is a very flexible truss rod, so really I'm just having to kind of hold it in shape. It's calibrated to the shape, but it has a tendency to bend out of shape, so I'm trying to just keep it roughly in shape while I use it, and I can see where it's taking a little bit of metal. It's not so easy for you to see at distance, but it's showing me I'm cutting here, missing one there, cutting all the way along here, a gap there, and then some high ones here. So it's sort of what I would have expected. So I'm just going to concentrate on this little humped patch here. I don't mind the little clonk at the other end. So I'm just going to run across between the tracks, between the G and what will be the D. So I can see it's taking a fair bit off the last fret and a bit off some ones before it. So that's partly what's getting in the way of these high notes. But I've got to be careful not to take much off this in the attempt to deliver a bit of lower action to Andy. Yeah, not bad. Little transition there where there's a low one. Between ones that are cutting, there's a little low patch right there. These are higher, tiny low patch, cutting patch. So I'm going to do a tiny bit more work there, but we'll get as close as we can get, or as good a reduction as I can get. Can't be, with frets this low, we just have to do the best we can, really. I don't want to be kind of hammering it down too far. It's a very different truss rod, this, so it feels a different proposition. It's quite, doesn't have the same sort of feedback as I'm used to from the other one. I know there's a low spot, and that's really all that's dictating what's possible here. So same as a regular 6-string guitar, always pretty much dictated by the low frets. That's what happens. So I think we might be in a playable low spot. Do a little bit more on that top. Whoops. So yeah, a little bit difficult. Technically, I could possibly, do a shorter sample with the stiffer rod. Do I really want to do that? Let's have a think. Take a sample. We've got a low spot, high spot, low spot, medium between them. We could do that actually. We could stiffen it up. Ooh, steady on. The thing about the this system is you don't have to measure all the way across. You can just take a cross section of your neck, as long as you take an even sample across that. So here I'm going to do a sort of a sample with this one, and I'm going to work it across these frets here. I'll need a bit more tape. So I could, if I wanted to, if I felt I needed to continue back down that end, I could use the same curve back down there, just walk it back down. I'm just going to apply it now. So it's shorter, but it's still mapping a cross section or taking a sample of that curve. Although in truth it's got a different set of features that it's working across. So we still have there's a low patch here, which is always going to be the limiting factor. And the trouble is, to test it I have to pull off this tape every time, which is a pain. So I'm just listening out for even the slightest. Actually, that's not bad. I'm going to do a tiny little bit more. So yeah, it's not, as a rule, you don't actually have to have the thingy being the full length of the thingy. That'll be enough. So you can see, as I'm doing here, I can apply it just across this shorter section, but I can take it down the other end and continue if there are problems down there. But what I'm finding is that they're mostly showing up at this end, so I'm just trying to bottom out the fretboard here, and if I feel like it, if I'm concerned, I can just run it down, give everything else a quick work over. That looks good. So in terms of actual amount of material removed, it's very small. In the gap, in the dip, that's okay, that's not bad. And that's probably dropped 0.6 of a millimetre on the action compared to where it was before, so that's pretty good. So I'm just hoiking the other bit out of the way, and I'll use the same curve here on this one, and we'll recalibrate after for the next one. So I'll do it in two chunks. I'm sort of expecting that the unevenness, the low spot, will probably continue across the radius, which is a fairly common thing to happen. Yeah, high one there. Missing there, but not as low as it was further along. High spots there. Let's just work our way up here a little bit. The second fret's quite high, relatively. Third fret as well. Okay. Be nice to give this all a big clean up. So again, really listening out for the low effect of the low spot there. Low spot. Okay, so we're still in the rut down there a little bit. What I'm going to do is, before I work on this again, I'm just going to recalibrate, make sure I got the curve right for this part of the neck, and I'll just work a little more on this end. A little more on. A little more on. Right. So it's been a few days since I was filming in the workshop, and the primary reason for that is because I had my booster COVID thing, and have to say it gave me a couple of mighty unpleasant days, like the worst ever possible hangover. Really could have done without that, but anyway, done and gone. But we shall see. I think regardless of what our politicians and health bodies do as far as the rest of the public health side of things goes, I think it's fair to say that, fairly safe bet that I've probably got a bit of extra resistance as a result. I know some people would think all manner of other bad things come along that package, but I'm not sure. I'm pretty certain I don't subscribe to that. But so we have got quite a low spot here, and it is putting a big limit on what's possible. Put a little bit more on the very end now, lean on it, stamp on it. Yes, so basically I felt so vile that I took a good couple of days off and did very little. I didn't have any choice on the first day. I was not up to anything. Yesterday came up and did the best I could do to get a load of routing done, which was okay. But I only managed about 4 hours before I just couldn't face anymore. So a bit of a limit to how much I could do. Anyway, so I'm back in the saddle. Just in time for a World War III with Vladimir Putin and his Ukrainian, whatever the hell he's doing, whatever it is he's doing. Threatening NATO. Anyway, let's just continue setting up guitars as if nothing else bad was happening in the world, because actually, what else can I do? What else can I do? Somebody will get me for that. That's owned by Northern Music. The rights owned by Northern Music. Gotta take her home tonight, and he will treat her kind. He's gonna treat her kind. Oh yes, and the other thing is, since I last spoke unto thee, I went and had my tryout with a covers band in the not too distant area, not too far from me. That was actually really good. It's very 80s. in the hole. Trying to get out of the hole. I'll put a bit more, lean a bit more on the far end, but can't really say that we're going to get too far. Oh shit! Push the strings off the what's it? You know what I mean. Notches. Anyway, yeah. So yes, it was good. So I'm going back for some more this week. So very 80s tunes. So we've got Cyndi Lauper, Time After Time. We've got a town called Malice, The Jam. We've got Stereophonics. And that's not 80s, is it? Stereophonics, Boy in the Photograph. We've got, that's a bloody low spot, that is. Boy in the Photograph. We've got Police Can't Stand Losing You, and things like that. A Depeche Mode, a Cure, In Between Days. A bit more just here. So this neck is definitely suffering from a low spot, which is just before the end here, and it's causing quite a bit of causing a little bit of problem for a low action. So I'm doing my best to recover. Really, basically, that reads bringing either side down to the level of the low spot. Doing the best I can do. That's going to do. Yeah, so that was my trip out to play with people. And actually, it didn't sound too bad for a first effort. Got the bass player recorded the rehearsal. The keyboardist, singer, bassist and drummer had played together once or twice before, but for a kind of first time with me added in, it wasn't that bad. It was encouraging, I would say. So we shall see. So we're going for another practice tomorrow evening. This time without the drummer, but with everyone else. So it'll be interesting to see how that sounds drummerless. I'm just still again trying to bottom out this low spot, which is around what would I call the 14th and 15th fret, low as anything. Just while I'm here, just even though there isn't really a problem with these, I'm just making sure we clip these just to make sure they're cleaned up like all the others, so we get a nice refresh. So normally would I be leveling bass frets? Not all the time, but in this case I am, because it's Andy and he wants it low. That's almost not enough height. To be frank, that is electric guitar action, so we're pushing it. I think we're pushing it too far. I've got to say that's my gold standard electric guitar action, which I think would be crazy to try and get away with. 6 string. Okay, that's 2. 2's good. We started out at 2.5, so we can certainly be doing a half mil improvement. Yeah, and we can then do a 2 point, sorry, just under 2 here. Actually, come back a bit. Each half turn of these blasted things is 0.5 millimeter. So a quarter turn is 1/4 millimeter. And that one was originally just over 2. It's currently on 1.5, which again is squeakingly low, really. 1.5 I'd call that. Yeah, we'll live with that. That's an improvement. It's better than it was. Tricky undertaking on a bass to get such a low action anyway. But you know, the constraint, as you saw, was those low frets there. But there's nothing unusual about that, because that's what we find on every guitar. On every guitar we see. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give these strings a quick wipe off. Get the dust and gunge off. Now I remember from the last time I worked on Andy's guitars, he likes the same strings, the original strings, unless they're completely breaking and dead. He likes to keep older strings on his guitars, so he doesn't have to kind of wear them in through the that tinny bright stage. Now, do we do the fiddling? Do we do the fiddling with strings on? No, we'll take them off. That's fine. So, okay, what I'll do is I'm going to stop for tonight. As far as I can see at the moment, this nut is perfectly good. It's moving, the strings are moving through perfectly smoothly. So we will retain it. We will polish out these frets, clean up the fingerboard, and then I will, on the next visit, take apart take the back off, and we'll look at the condition of the jack and see what the problem might be in there. And we just want to make sure that it doesn't have the intermittent fault. To me, the intermittent fault usually is a worn-out jack, which I honestly never been able to work out what it is about a jack that can create that problem. There's not that many parts in it to go wrong, but it's usually fixed. Whatever it is that breaks or disconnects, it is usually fixed by replacing it. Okay, there's our strings off to one side. And there's our mucky old fingerboard, which we can give a clean down with some goo. So these frets will get a nice clean up, having been very mucky for a long time. They'll get a good polish out shortly. But I'm just getting rid of some of the dust and grime for a minute. I'll probably take the tuners off anyway, off camera, and give the whole headstock as much of a clean as I can. Yeah, good. Grime, still more to do. So, okay, I'm going to switch off cameras and I'm just going to get into cleaning mode, and I'll do the recrowning bit. I suppose I Probably ought to do that first. So if I get my marker pen, let us do such a thing. Down you go. Change the view. Yeah, nut's pretty good. So I'm going to use the medium size crowning file, or the medium gauge side of the crowning file to recrown these threads. Now if they're too low, I would have to do it manually, which is not impossible. So that you might be asking yourself, why does a crop or a little patch of frets on a guitar neck, why do you have a little patch that are higher or lower in this case, causing the problems, than anywhere else? And I used to think in the olden days, I used to wonder if it was that something had happened during the installation of the frets. You know, maybe one or a couple of frets have been hammered in with more force than the others. And that is possible, and it can adjust the relative evenness by a fair bit. But over time, I've started to see that it's more to do with these hills and valleys in the neck, more to do with that generally. So, and those are just features of the wood, basically, how the wood chooses to behave, and they're idiosyncratic for each guitar. So you can't really predict them. I mean, you can predict that, for example, you can be fairly sure that where the heel screws into the neck pocket, you can be sure that that flattens and stiffens the neck up. That's predictable, but that where exactly that the low valleys occur can be very varied. On some guitars I've had recently, I've seen 5 or 6 different zones, which you have to ultimately then have to work around to get it to play at a low action, because the bottom line is that a little crop of low frets will stop you. It can stop you lowering the action. So that's your challenge, and ultimately there's some degree of a judgment call involved as how much of the fret material are you prepared to take away in order to bottom out this problem, because that's literally all you can do, is to bottom out the higher frets, or normal frets we should say, around the valley. Bloody nerve, pinched in nerve in my shoulder doing fret crowning. Anyway, so once I've done this, I will switch off the camera, and I shall be taping off the neck ready for polishing out, and then we'll come back to have a look at the electrics, or look and a listen, see what we can do. But I'll do a lot of the cleaning stuff off camera, just because I can. Okay, so I shall wander my way up to the end of the neck. So I will see you tomorrow. Bye for now. Okay, we're back, and it's a Friday evening. It's quite late, unusually late. I've had a sort of parish council-y meeting discussion on Zoom, so I'm kind of running late. That happened at the grand old hour of 7, so it's about 8:30, 8:45 now, so I'm starting late in the day. Right, so what I'm just doing here, I've leveled and polished out the frets. So now is the time to sort out the jack socket. Now I've bought a new one simply because, in my experience, as soon as there's any fault with the jack, it doesn't pay to try and think or assume it's down to soldering and then think you fixed it. It makes more sense to get a shot of it and put a decent one, or put a replacement in one that you know will work. So just for a minute, I'm going to pull this thing off to the side and tape it down there, out of the way, and flip over. So this is undone. Out that comes, and out the back comes the jack. Out the back comes the jack. So here we have bits and pieces ready to go. So here's my new, sorry, terrible view. Here's my new all parts stereo jack socket. So I'm going to use that. This in the bin. So while behind you, which you can't see, I'm going to fire up the soldering iron. Go. Find me solder, find me soldering sponge thing. That's an old one. Actually, I've got another one here. Oh, and I've got some tinner cleaner thing, which is great. Finally got some. First lot I ordered got lost. I don't think I ever got refunded for it either. But I got some more, so I'm going to enjoy. They call it. It's called tip tinning, but I don't know if it tins it or just cleans it. But either which way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write this off as just not. We're not going to trust it. For the sake of about £6 or whatever the thing costs, I'm not going to trust it. I'm going to remove it. So what I'm going to do, just for my own peace of mind, if I can find a pen, I'm going to write upon it, return to sender. I'm going to write what's what. So just, that's dead simple. There's the plus, there's the corresponding minus, and there's the battery minus. And then we'll have a B next to it, which is completely invisible. So our corresponding socket, same, will be plus, just double check, straight across, plus, yeah, that's the top tip. This will be the minus, and this will be the battery minus, which is another tip, but it's the lower tip. So it's just like to be doubly, trebly, surely, just to make sure. So I'm snipping these little fellas off. There's enough there's enough wire on here to tidy this up and give it a fresh go, which is what the plan will be. So it's Friday night, and tomorrow I'm going to see my eldest boy play rugby. An hour and a half up the motorway, but it's nice to get to see him once in a while. He's been back in the country for a while now, but despite that he's still busy working and stuff, so I don't get to see him so much. But I shall go up there tomorrow, spend an afternoon watching rugby. Now, the secret is I don't much care for rugby, but I'll go and see if I can learn some fresh enthusiasm because he's playing. Maybe I'll learn something new. I'm not criticising the game or anything, just it's never been top of my list of things, really. You know, you're either kind of into particular sports or you're not. You don't have a judgment on the other ones, just it's never been my thing. Although I sort of have a kind of admiration for it. I certainly do. You know, what people do when they run and tackle is, or run and get tackled is quite astounding. But there's a big fly in here. Yeah, it always struck me as a bit too rough a game for my liking. Call me a softie. I don't mind admitting it. Right, there's my I'm going to blow my nose. Unfortunately, not too far away from you. Yes, let's tin the tip. Tin the tip. Ooh, it is tip tinning. So it isn't the same stuff as before. Oh my god, that's beautiful. Look at that. That really is solder mixed with good stuff. Wowee. Ooh. I think I'll end up just having to swish that out. No, it's different. The other, I don't know what the stuff I had before then was, but it's not the same as this. But this was nice, good stuff. Right, so I'm going to tin these here wires to start with, if the solder will cooperate with me. And yeah, so tomorrow's a rugby trip, and then I've got penciled in a workshop session in the evening, but I've put the main work to Sunday instead. And on Sunday I'm going to be working on Stu's Martin, which is going to be an interesting one because it's a relatively new guitar, which has bellied, and I suppose the aficionados would say, oh well, that's got to go, get reset. You need a neck reset. Well, not exactly. I mean, it's bellied, so the action has risen, the belly is lifted up, and you can see a distinct, it's about 6mm lift on each side simultaneously. So a total of 6. Yeah. So I guess it just means that the bridge has in effect risen up 6mm higher than the surrounding top, and it's either a reset or more of a not a hack exactly, but a lower tech, more temporary solution that I'm going to go for. And it's something we discussed, and I kind of gave him my take on the alternatives, and it came down to the fact that it's a guitar that he intends to keep. It's not going to be for sale. He's not keen to spend £400 to £600 getting the neck reset or going to extreme measures. So I've got two things on the cards. One is I'm going to lower the action a little bit at the bridge, at the saddle, by virtue of making very small notching in the high E and the B, and then I'm going to basically install a bridge doctor and use that to, if nothing else, arrest any further lifting of the bridge. And it's an interesting one, the bridge doctor, because I think, first of all, the only reason I've used them in the past and continue to, it I suppose began because they were strongly recommended by Stu Mac, who I have to say, even though sometimes I'm not a fan of everything they do, but I find that their take is usually very good. Now, just this thing here, I'm going to try and see if I can fit. I don't know if it's big enough, but ideally, yes. I'm going to put a crush, sort of springy, bouncy, if I can, washer into here, just to give this a little bit more spring against the underside, because I really want it to stay put. Oh, there is one there already, and it's a bigger one. Let's try a combination of two. I want this to sort of build up some tension and hold it in place so A, it doesn't come undone over time, and doesn't go wandering off anywhere. Right, that may be too many. Oh no, it's just about right. Sorry about the view, terrible view. I'm just going to put that in there and get the old thingy, adjustable spanner on it. Let's just check the positioning of this. That's good, that's good, that's good. Hold it in place. Put it under pressure. Okay. So, I'll put the lid back on. Can you see? Yes, sort of, you can. Right, I'm going to put the lid back on. So we've got a new jack socket in there. I'm going to try and get the wiring out of the way so no tips come through and bash into anything. We'll put the lid on and we'll do a sort of stringless test. And we'll keep the fingers crossed that this will work okay. Now, but previously, not only was there an intermittent problem on the jack, so there was something wrong, but there was also a bit of a grounding, unwanted grounding buzz as well, which, well, to me the circuitry sounded very noisy. There wasn't a buzz, actually there wasn't a buzz when it was passive, but when the battery was switched on it was noisy. So I'm going to see if we've first of all cured the intermittent switching off and on. Actually, it was more off than on when I first got hold of it. It has since, I think it was a bit more on than off in the last test. So, oh my god, guitar cables get in the way of everything. Thank you. Feels nice and solid. Okay, amplifier. That's over here. In you goes. Right. First way on. Okay, that's better. So that's good. That could be the signal from here. Yeah, wow. Now it's gone off, unless I'm mistaken. No, it hasn't gone off. Woo. It's picking up. I'll turn this off. Picking up various pieces of equipment, that's for sure. Okay. Let's just take a look. I'm going to turn this off. I want to take a quick look behind closed doors. Behind here again. Are you still in good view? Yeah. I'm just going to look at what the shielding's like on here, because in a way, with the preamp built into this, it's almost like it's almost more critical that this thing is shielded. Now it's shielded on the inside of the cover. What I don't really know is to what degree is this shielded. I don't think they shielded this part of it. I think they shielded the top downwards, because I'm judging that from the fact there's this strip here which is connecting this pot, or the ground that services this pot, connecting it to the underside here. They could have grounded the inside. I don't know. I'm gonna assume they did, but I could be wrong. The alternative is a pretty big deal, because I would have to remove everything and re-shield everything. So I'm gonna string it up and play it as it is, and I'm going to take it back to a quieter environment and see to what degree the RF picked up on the when the boost circuit is switched on. See what degree of annoyance it has, if any. It may be better in a different location. I must remember to buy new batteries for here. These are currently running on my rechargeables. Okay, so soldering iron is off, which I think helped to quieten down things too. What I've also got, while I'm at it, I'm going to move this amp out of the way for a minute, and I'm going to just concentrate on polishing, or doing a little bit of a scratch remover polish on the top front of this guitar. It's not perfect, but I think it will benefit from a little bit of going over with this. It's a small thing, but I did it at the headstock, so I'll do it here as well. So I will find a dry piece of cloth. Note to self, must order more cloths. That's been used for oil, that's more like it. Yeah, more cloths needed. Anyhow, that'll do. Yes. So, ready to go nearly. Just a little bit of take a surface level. This is a surface layer. This is really good for removing kind of baked on grime, watermarks, things like that. If I was dismantling everything and stripping everything out, then it would probably be just as easy, or if not easier, to plan to strip it all out and buff the whole body out. But in the since I'm not doing that, it's better then to do it by hand in this sort of way. Although it takes a little bit of extra time. There's also sort of buckle rash and various dents and things in here, so it will never look new or pristine, but as I say, you can get rid of a sort of surface layer of grime and grease that otherwise would still stay on. So, watched an interesting video today of Dave Simpson on Dave Simpson's channel, and he was raving about a new brand of budget guitars called Jet. And he raved so much about it, I was almost tempted to go and buy one, but except I just don't need any more guitars. I mean, I suppose I could buy it, set it up and sell it. There's always that, and just use it as video fodder. But it's, at the moment, I haven't got the headroom for it. I've got too much work on. I'm not complaining, luxury problem and all that. So I think it's probably not the right time. And also, I don't think, by the sounds of it, I don't think they need me kind of doing their marketing for them, because people like Dave are doing a much better job than I could do, because he can really play them as well to their best, or to a very high standard, and a good show, does a really good job of showing off their capabilities. But he's somebody who I respect, his ability and his thoughtful kind of take on things. So, if I saw one passing by, I would grab hold of it, probably quickly. And somebody in the comments said they thought it was made at the same place where Classic Vibes were made for a while. It wouldn't surprise me. It has the look of that sort of quality to it, which you can immediately tell. Versus, I'm afraid, when you get something like a Glary, and you can see it's just banged out of the worst quality production line you can almost imagine. Sorry, Glary. Their stuff is crude compared to what these Jets look like. You can just see the fit and finish is so much better. Anyway, obviously the Glary is, quite a bit cheaper, because the Jets were about 150 quid or something around there for the HHH Strat style one. But they look surprisingly good, so worth checking out if you haven't heard seen them before. Jet, I can't remember what it's called now. Jet something or other. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, since this is where we're at, I'm going to kind of lift up the view a bit, and I'm going to put some oil onto the fretboard. So I think this is up and running in terms of its functionality, I'm pleased to say. You know, the issue about whether it's a little bit on the noisy side is inherent to the design and of the original base. So it's not like it's become that way. Everything is working. It may be that it was a, you know, by definition of being a boost, it had some inherent noise boosting going on. But you know, I've done the principal thing, which is to level and polish the frets out, and in doing so lowered the action a little bit for Andy. Fixed the intermittent problem by replacing the jack, or tracking it down to the jack. Track it to the jack, baby. And then replacing the jack forthwith. Now satisfied that it will continue to work. And now it's a matter of getting the strings back on and just tweaking and double checking the setup. Let's push these things out of the way. Right. Cloths out of the way. Strings come here. So a preference of Andy's: continue to reuse or continue to use the original strings, but rather than replace them. So these go down in here. Do they? Where do they go? Down in here, and then pull up like so, I believe. Put that at this end. And this is doing it by hand because my winder doesn't really do it with a bass guitar sized tuner knob. Anyway, so this target for tonight has been mostly achieved so far, and that was to finish this job. I had a couple of checks to make. One of them was I printed out or made a new template for Nick's guitar. So I double checked. I suddenly had a horrible feeling that the one I was working on and who was starting to cut the body to was the wrong size. So in a sort of moment of panic, I went through the whole process of creating another template, cutting it out, or tiling it out on the printer, cutting it out and bringing it up here. And the first thing I did was run up and compare it to the template I've got here, and thank heavens they're the same size. And the interesting part is that I took this template directly from Nick's mock-up, or I created my template directly from Nick's mock-up. So in that sense, it actually is slightly different sized to the Carvin HH, which, considering there are other things about this that are slightly different, for example, not this, but the build I'm doing for Nick will have a belly carve and forearm, a bit of a forearm slope and stuff. So in those details, for a start, it's going to be a different guitar. But I just wanted to, be sure that I hadn't gone miles off. And as a result of it being a slightly different guitar, what it means is that the bridge is going to end up in a slightly different position than either of Nick's mock-up drawings. But thank you. It's not a problem. It's going to end up in the right place for the guitar. That's the main thing. And I think it will, as I've tested out before, it's going to end up with the barrels hanging just over. Whereas the Carvin actually has, where the barrels are, it has a sort of an extra cutaway, like a relief area, because presumably the barrels were enough over the body as to require a little bit of extra space to get the fingers under. So I don't need that because mine will be pointing and positioned in the right place. That's the important thing. So I don't have that worry. which means they will be neater to the end of the cutaway. So only the barrels will hang over and they'll be in fresh air, so there'll be no trouble in accessing them. So there. Right, laser electric. Doing this by hand. Should make one of the large size ones out of thermoplastic, as Martin once did, and sent me a kind of custom made string winder thing, but that was for a 6-string guitar. Right, getting there. Oh boy. Right, the action should be all pretty much exactly where I left it. Oh, that's not going to work, is it? I'm just going to double check this because sometimes it can go so wrong. Get off 441. D. Hey, hey. Right, bring back the amp, which is of course a puny little Roland cube, which will only be good for testing it in principle, as we all know. So don't be surprised if it doesn't sound any good. Ooh. Doesn't like it at the full range. Well, not in this position. It is what it is. I'm going to call that working, and the reason why is that I can hear as I move it around, it's sort of moving, it's improving as I move it away from some of the light sources in this room. So it is susceptible. You know, in a future life, maybe a full shield might be a smart idea, but I don't think in this case it's worth taking everything apart. I think as long as you know it's limited with the boost on and full on in one right at the limit of its boost, or the full on boost, it's going to be susceptible to noise because it's boosting a certain frequency range by the sounds of it. That's what to look out for. So I think it's just I think it's just a matter of being conscious of that and make sure you don't play it somewhere. I've got double-headed screws. They're stuck together like Siamese twins. These are a bit small and may not do the job of holding this on. That's just the reason I'm trying them out. Is this? Oh no, they will. There's 3 of a kind. At least that looks tidy. Currently, there's 2 of a different kind with a gap. So I figured if 3 of the same kind will do it, it'll look better. Will it not? It will. I think so. I prefer that look. And these old vintage things can go in the bin. Alright, so I think we're there. We are there. Remembering there is a dip there, and we've got no real way. I mean, that's pretty low. That's about 1.5, just over 1.5, playing off against 2. Yeah, about 2 and 1.5, which for a bass is very low. So I would be possibly tempted to tweak the side up fraction by turning it the correct way, Sam. Come on, Juno. Some growling beast this is, even with no amplification. Check the relief. Yeah, more than there was, but still quite a little, only a little. Alright, there we are, ladies and gentlemen. The Aria Pro 2 classic laser electric, or laser electric classic. I don't know what was going on with that, but it was rocking and rolling. I'll keep it as an absolute spare, but I don't. It's one of those things that doesn't ever really pay to put in a spare that you've already had trouble with. The strap buttons are all done up. What I was going to do is just bring down this pickup very slightly, only because we've lowered the strings very slightly too. And the same here, just a tad. Front and back adjustment, which is very cool. Okay, let's have a look. Yep. Okay. Yeah, I mean, low as it will go, limited by that low spot. What was it, 13th, 14th fret there? And the fact that the strings are already quite old, so beyond that you can't really go, I'm afraid, short of, well, I was going to say refretting and starting again, but you know, for a bass that's pretty low anyway. Okay, thanks for watching. See you again on the next one. And the next one for Andy is going to be the Ozark acoustic, or Parlour acoustic, which will be sometime in the middle of next week. So I look forward to seeing you on that one. Thanks for watching.